I want to talk about a film that genuinely disturbed me. Not in the way that cheap jump scares disturb you, where you flinch and then immediately forget. I mean the kind of disturbed where you finish the film, sit in silence for a moment, and realize the images are going to stay with you for a while. Obsession, directed by Curry Barker, produced by Blumhouse, released in India a few days ago, and I watched it over the weekend, and I need to talk about it because this film, made for just $1 million, does something that most $100 million horror films completely fail to do. It genuinely unsettles you. For those who don't know, Obsession follows Bear, a music store employee who's deeply, unhealthily in love with his childhood friend Nikki. Bear buys a supernatural toy, the One Wish Willow, and wishes for Nikki to fall in love with him. And she does. But as with all wishes granted by something supernatural, the cost is far higher than Bear ever imagined. That's all I'll say about the plot. Because the joy, if joy is the right word for a film this dark, is in discovering exactly how that wish unravels. What I'll say is this: the premise sounds simple, almost too simple, but Curry Barker takes that simple premise and builds something that gets progressively darker, progressively more disturbing, and completely earns its ending. Let me tell you what this film does that most horror films don't. It commits. So many horror films today are afraid of their own darkness. They give you a scary moment and then immediately pull back. A joke, a breath, a moment of relief. They don't trust the audience to sit with genuine discomfort. Obsession doesn't do that. This film gets darker as it progresses. Every act is more disturbing than the last. Every scene pushes further. And by the time you reach the final act, you are genuinely not sure how dark this is willing to go. The answer? Very quick. There is a scene involving a character called Sarah. I won't say more than that, but it is one of the most genuinely shocking moments I have seen in a horror film in years. I was not expecting it. The timing, the execution, the sound design, everything about it worked. My jaw genuinely dropped. And that reaction, that pure, unfiltered, what the F is something cinema owes you every so often. Obsession delivers it. Now, performances. The entire cast does solid work. Michael Johnston as Bear is committed and credible. He makes you understand why someone could become this obsessed, even as you watch him make decisions that are increasingly difficult to sympathize with. But this film belongs to Inde Navarrete. Every scene she's in, she's operating on a completely different level. There's a transformation that happens to her character as the film progresses. I won't describe it specifically, but Inde takes that transformation and makes it feel completely real, completely terrifying, and somehow, simultaneously, deeply sad. The scene involving Sarah, the one I mentioned earlier, is Inda's scene, and she owns it completely. It is a jump scare in the most honest sense of the word, not a cheap audio sting over a sudden close up, but a genuine moment of shock because of what she does and how she does it. I didn't know Inde Navarrete before this film. I will not forget her after it. If this film gets the audience it deserves, this performance will make her career. Now let's talk about the budget. $1 million. When I found out, it suddenly made complete sense. The limited locations, the small cast, the indie film aesthetic, the way Barker uses sound and darkness rather than expensive VFX to create tension. But here is the thing: while I was watching, I didn't feel the budget. I felt the craft. There is a difference between a cheap film and a low budget film. Cheap films feel cheap. Shortcuts in storytelling, performances that don't commit, see scares that don't land. Obsession is a low budget film made by people who genuinely know what they're doing. Curry Barker's screenplay is tight. Every scene has a purpose. Nothing is wasted. The runtime, 109 minutes, is exactly right. Not a minute too long, not a minute too short. This film has earned $108 million worldwide on a $1 million budget. That is an extraordinary achievement, and it deserves every dollar. I said the ending was expected, and it is, if you've been paying attention. Barker plants everything you need to see it coming. But expected doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. The ending of Obsession is sad, dark, and inevitable. By the time you get there, you understand why it had to end this way. There was no other possible conclusion for these characters. And that understanding makes it more painful, not less. Great horror endings don't shock you with something random. They make you realize, with a quite cold feeling in your chest, that you saw this coming all along and you couldn't stop it. That is exactly what Obsession does. Obsession is the best horror film I've watched in years. It is disturbing without being gratuitous. It is dark without being nihilistic. It commits to its premise completely and follows it to its logical, devastating conclusion. Inde Navarrette delivers one of the best horror performances I can remember. Curry Barker proves that with a tight screenplay and genuine craft, you don't need $100 million to terrify an audience. If you love horror, real horror, the kind that stays with you, watch this film. But not alone, and not late at night. You have been warned. Have you watched Obsession? Tell me in the comments. And if you haven't watched it yet, does this review convince you too? I'm genuinely curious because this is the kind of film that divides people. Some will find it too dark. Others, like me, will find it exactly dark enough. Subscribe if you want more honest films and book reviews like this one every week on Lauren Lens. See you in the next one.